Hi, I'm Slyelessar. If you're used to my channel, you know, or you're familiar that I do a lot of guitar pedals and guitar demos. But this time I've been watching a lot of book reviews on YouTube, and I've decided I'd like to do a couple of my own. I've been looking into a few and I've enjoyed them, and I thought, well, I thought I'd have a go at it. So my book is one of Michael Moorcock's lesser known Warrior of Mars, also known in America as Kane of Mars, and it was published in 1965. I've got a couple of notes here. I'm just going to pull through them there again. And this book is a tip of the hat to Edgar Rice Burroughs, and apparently Michael Moorcock wrote this in 9 days, and it was one of Moorcock's biggest selling titles for quite a long time, and it was in the libraries and it was in demand for quite a long period of time. This is a book that means quite a lot to me. I read it when I was younger, much younger, probably about 9 or 10, and then as I'm a bit older I've gone back and I've read it a few times, and I really appreciate it more and more. As you can see, my copy is quite old and worn. Unfortunately, the pages are quite yellow. This book is actually a collection of 3 books. There's initially 3 separate books, and those books were The City of the Beast, Lord of the Spiders, and Masters of the Pit. And this one has an introduction of a personal introduction from Michael Moorcock about the book and the character, etc. when it was collated into this one book. And as you can guess from the title, Warrior of Mars, it is based on Mars. There's quite an unusual twist to it. It's actually in the past. I've got a little excerpt down here I'll quickly read to you. It says, Kane worked at the Chicago Physics Institute, where he worked on a matter transmitter. When it was ready for human trials, Kane volunteered to be the first subject. He was supposed to be transported to another part of the institute. Instead, he in fact materialised on Mars at the time of the dinosaurs on Earth. That's quite an unusual take on this. The fact that it's done when dinosaurs are on Earth, and when he comes to realise that, you know, and you come to realise that as a reader, it's quite interesting. And it plays along, and he meets, what happens is he meets this journalist. This is going back a bit again here. I've just told you what happens, but I'm going to step back a bit because it starts with the book. A journalist meets Kane in the south of France. He gets interested in his story, so they go back to his hotel room, and because he's a journalist, he decides to write about Kane's story. So he starts taking notes on Kane's story, and he tells it to him, and then you're sort of dropped into this world. You get a little backdrop of Kane's background, what he's been doing scientifically, and how he came to be on Mars. It's the book. I'm trying to talk about it without giving too many spoilers away, because it's a good enough book to get through. You could even get the singular books if they're available. I know they're not available on Kindle, and I'm actually a lover of actual books rather than Kindle, but at the moment I'm going to need a Kindle for travelling, etc. And I've lost where I am. Okay, so he's in the room with Kane, and he's giving a story, and he gets caught up in an affair. Basically, he goes to Mars. He gets caught up in all these affairs, sort of half political. It's a kingdom structure in the first book, because it's 3 books, as I mentioned. And he gets caught up in the affairs that are going on there. And it's just the way the character's portrayed. He's kind of that innocent, almost hero with really strong morals, but innocent in the fact that he's very intelligent. He's lived through quite a lot. He did fencing at college and university, which he excelled at apparently. and then he studied physics, so he's got a good grasp on a lot of things. And the technology back in ancient Mars is actually the major weapons are sort of swords and spears, and they've got the odd bit of technology that's left around by this mysterious ancient alien race that they only sort of know how to operate. They can't physically operate, which he undergoes something that allows him to understand what they're talking about and communicate. And he ends up getting involved in this war with the kingdom. So it's quite interesting. I won't go into too many details because there's lots of things going on there. And turn the page briefly. I like the characters, and you warm very much to Kane, the character itself. He's, as I mentioned, he's intelligent. He sort of, if you're reading this from a younger mind, I'm talking about when I was much younger, he's the kind of hero you want to be when you grow up. That sort of, everything about him's pure and good, and he's physically strong and he's mentally strong. And he's got this great sense of morals, as I mentioned. So and there's other characters in the book I'm not going to mention, actually, just because it's better for you to go and read it yourself. But I mean, they're not sort of 2D characters, and it goes on all these types of adventures. And over the course of the 3 books, it really opens up in terms of adventure. Again, I'm not going to go into the story of the second books and how they come about, but a lot of this is storytelling from where he's been, and it jumps back. And it involves coming across a city with a strange plague. I'm not going to tell what the plague is or what happens, but I really enjoyed that part of the book. It's one of my favourite parts of the book. There's pirates in it, there's war, there's rebellion. As I mentioned, briefly touched on it before, there's this technology left behind this by this mysterious ancient alien race, and conveniently, being a physicist, he tries to figure out how this machinery works, and it's got some really cool ideas for this machinery. It's not just laser guns and laser swords and things like that, which you tend to find a lot in sci-fi. It's more fantasy with that bit of sci-fi element to it. Again, there's some cool ideas in there, and sort of ancients of a race that you don't actually meet, not how you'd expect, again, without going into any spoilers. And it sort of touches grounds of racism as well. They're not just because they're Martian and he's from Earth, but they're actually other indigenous Martians on the planet that have completely, they have blue skin, and they're sort of giants. Not giants in the sense that Jack and the Beanstalk, sort of giants in the sense that he's 6 foot odd and they're about, I can't remember how tall it says in the book, probably about 11 foot, 12 foot, something like that. And there's some great camaraderie in there, amongst other things. So I'm going to turn the page quickly here. I've mentioned most of it, really. It's a book that keeps you intrigued to the end. You like to know where it's going. I think some people would find it parts predictable, but it's only because when this book was written, compared to now, I think a lot of stuff's been recycled from loads of different books, loads of different genres, loads of different writers, and it becomes harder to fool people into, or not fool people, to surprise people. You know, it's just one of those things. But a part of me wishes, because there's only these 3 little books in this one collection, or again separate if you want to get them separately, I kind of wish there were more of them. But at the same time, that can be what makes something great. That there's less is more. You don't have these series that go on and on and on and then just sort of dry out. Yeah, I mean, give this book a shot. I recommend it. Really enjoyed it, especially if you fantasy sci-fi fans. Definitely a classic, and it's one of my favourite books of Michael Moorcock's. Okay,